Hello, my name is Ike Lumise, and I'll be showing you how to install Solaris and do a couple things within the operating system, which include account and password configuration, some network configurations, and how to update your system if it's not up to date. So, I will be using VM Workstation because the hard drive that I had was unable to install Solaris. So I'll just go ahead and show you guys how to utilize it using a virtual machine. So first, of course, you'll create the virtual machine here. Want to hit next, leave the recommended setting selected, and then wherever you have the ISO saved, that's where you want to grab the ISO. I've already got it downloaded here in my ISO folder I have on my computer. But if you don't have it, you could simply go to Google and just type in Solaris ISO download. It's usually the first link that takes you to Oracle. And once you get to Oracle, you want to do installation from CD/DVD drive or USB. And for this, we'll be using a text installer. This is actually the ISO here. Don't select Spark because those are special machines that utilizes those versions of Solaris. So for the ISO, for the operating system for VM, we'll use the text installer. And this is where I got it from. I already have it downloaded, so I'll just go ahead and go back to my virtual machine and start to download Solaris. Since I already have one, I'll name this Solaris Test. Then I'll just give it about, let's just say 20 gigabytes of space. And then this option here, since we don't plan on really moving it outside of this computer, we'll just go ahead and hit Store Virtual Disk as a single file and hit Next. We can keep all the defaults set and finish and allow that to power on. These same steps you would take if you had a physical hard drive. What you'd want to do is get a bootable USB drive, get a blank USB drive, I should say, and use the software Rufus and take that same ISO and use it to make that USB drive bootable. Once it's bootable and you try to power on a machine with a blank hard drive and you boot from the USB drive, it'll give you all of these same options. So here, our first option, I want to pick our language setting. So we're English. It does say if you don't type anything, English is default, which is 27. But for this case, we're just typing 27 and hit enter. And then we have our keyboard settings. Since we're English as well, we'll type 3 and hit enter again. So now it's configuring our Solaris installer so that we're able to understand what's in the installer and hit the right selections. All right, and now we'll type 1 to go ahead and install Oracle Solaris and press enter. All right, so this is just giving us some details of how to navigate through the installation. F2 will be to go forward, and then when you go forward, F3 will be to go back. So we'll be utilizing those two keys mostly to complete the installation. So for right now, we'll press F2 to continue. We can leave everything on this page as default. Discovery method would be the local disk, so we'll press F2 again. Since it's a VM, you can see this is the VM that it created. size 20 gigabytes. So that's the only drive that's available. So we press F2 again to continue. And then we're not making any special modifications on this part. We'll use the entire disk. F2 again. And then if you like, you can change the computer name. Me personally, I'll just keep it as Solaris. So I'll type F2. And then this is our network configuration. Since we're using a VM, we'll just use the net 0. That's the bridge between my virtual machine and my host computer. So if you had any additional network configurations, you can select it if it appears on your installer. But for me, I'll just leave it as net 0 and hit F2 again. We want to use DHCP, so I hit F2. And then the region that we're in. Since we are in the United States, we'll go to the Americas, tap F2. So use the arrow keys to navigate through the options. And then F2. And then scroll all the way down to United States. F2 again. And here is our time zone. I'm currently in Maryland, so it's not listed as one of the states here, so I'll just use Eastern most areas and hit F2. And then of course I speak English, F2 again. And then territory, we can leave it as default and hit F2 again. So your device should pick up the date and time, but if it didn't, you could go ahead and edit that here. But as mine has the correct date and time, I'll leave that alone and hit F2 to continue. And then of course, keyboard settings, just like before, US English. So that's what I use, and I hit F2 again to continue. And then now we can create the root password. Then once you created it, it'll have you confirm. You hit the arrow key down to confirm, then retype it. Then if you like, you could create a user account and add information here. For me, I'll just be operating out of the root user, so I won't add a user account. I'll actually show you guys how to add a user account via the terminal once we get everything installed rather than doing it here. So for now, I'll just hit F2 again to continue. And then we can leave this as a default as well. Support registration. I'm not using any support for Solaris, so I'll leave it as default and hit F2 again. And now that all those settings and configurations are created, now is the real install. You'll just hit F2 to actually install everything to your device. And we'll just let that run.